Now, one thing that's almost impossible to deny is that the previous trade and how you react to the previous trade is going to impact the way you come to the markets the next day and trade. And the more and more I worked one-on-one with clients, and many students come through the 12-week program, the language that they were using was around, I had overtraded today, or I had deviated from my trading plan, or I over-risked because of what happened previously on the previous trade, because of the previous loss, because of how I previously missed a position, etc., etc. So what became very obvious to me was that the way you perceive the previous trade and the way you react to the previous trade is going to have a significant impact on your ability to stick to your trading plan the next trade. So what we need to do now that we've identified an edge, put that edge into a mechanical trading plan, established a proper set of processes for before you trade, now we need to set and establish a set of processes for after you trade. You've just taken a trade, maybe it was a win, maybe it was a loss, or you've just missed a position, for example. What do you do at the end of every trading day to ensure that you get your mind back to a certain state so that you're not impacted by that trading day the next trading day? Okay, so that's what we're going to cover in this video. And traders, if you haven't already done the trading psychology quiz, that's a completely free and new quiz that I've created to help you identify which of the 4 trading mindsets you have, as well as give you a free personalized report of what exactly to do to take you from where you are to consistently profitable. If you find value in this trading psychology mastery series, please share the YouTube playlist with your community. Let's get this out there so that more traders put their focus on trading psychology and can get paid by the markets at the end of the day. Okay, let's dive into it. Now, there's a certain principle or concept that I would love to share. And this principle is ultimately what we're going to help you get to with the action steps that we talk about in today's video, as well as the previous next few days when we start to dig a little bit deeper into the human psychology. And we start to talk a little bit more on slightly more advanced topics and get a little bit more granular and specific on the human psychology and how it reacts in certain situations. A lot of these protocols that we're establishing now are going to make a lot of sense when we get into those granular ideas of the human psychology. But anyway, the principle we want to embody is this. As a trader, let's say, for example, you have yourself here, and then you have the markets. There's a certain relationship that goes on beyond the trader and the markets, between the trader and the markets. Okay? Now, as an individual, you can either be in a state of pride and self-exaggeration, where you are exaggerating yourself, or you can be in a state of shame and self-minimization, where you're minimizing yourself and your abilities. And the way you see yourself, and depending on which state you're in, is going to impact the way you perceive the market and the way you trade in the market. Because if you're self-exaggerating and in this state of pride, you're more likely to narcissistically project your ideas onto the market. In this sort of, you have this greed mentality of I want more, I deserve more. And I can predict what's going to happen next in the market. I don't need to look at the market. I can force an idea onto the market, get paid from the market. That's all an example of self-exaggeration, pride, greed, projecting onto the market. So too, you can be in this state where you're self-minimized and the market shows you an opportunity in front of you, but you're in this fear-based state because of self-minimization or shame from a previous loss, this fear-based state that you don't take the position because you're fearful you're going to experience another loss. So your pride and your shame take you away from your trading plan. They take you away from the edge and the process you've just established. If you're proud, you're not going to listen to your trading plan. You're not going to look at the market. You're going to think about an idea in your mind, create this fantasy of what you think is going to happen next, and you're going to force that agenda into the market. If you're in this state of shame and self-minimization, the market may present an opportunity that aligns with your plan, but because of this fear-based mentality, you're not going to execute. So this relationship, this dynamic between the trader and the market gets disrupted when you're in either pride or in shame. There also is a state of equilibrium or in a state of balance or poise that a trader can get themselves to or close to that allows them to objectively take in what the market's communicating to them in that moment. Okay, the market is showing me this, this, and that, and this, and that aligns with my trading plan. You got your trading plan, and you've planned for that day, like we've talked about in previous videos, and you got that plan set. And then because the market's communicated that your criteria has been met, you just execute in the market. So it's not this self-exaggerating thinking you can predict what's going to happen next, nor is it this self-minimization, fearful of what's going to happen next. It's more this state of poise and certainty and balance and equilibrium that the market's presented an opportunity. You're certain it aligns with your process and you execute. Can you see how this is outcome-based? This is outcome-based, fearing the outcome, greedy over the outcome. And this one is process-based. Irrespective of the outcome, I'm executing because the market aligns to my trading plan. So what I'm trying to communicate here is that the way you react to a previous trade, let's say, for example, you experience a win on your previous trade. If you don't know how to manage that win, then you're going to get puffed up into this state of pride, this state of self-exaggeration that we're talking about here. Okay, most traders do. And then what could happen is you then force low quality setups into the market. You go into this losing streak because you're not listening to the market. And eventually you go so deep into this shame, self-minimization, fear state that you slap yourself across the face a few times and you have a few sleepless nights and you realize you need to get your shit together and you focus on just taking the highest quality setups in your trading plan because you're challenged, because you're in this deep state of shame and challenge and fear. You just take the quality setups and then you start to build more wins as a result. And then it happens all again. You go into this state of pride, self-exaggeration after the wins, and then the cycle repeats. By the way, this is what is referred to as the boom and bust cycle. The boom and bust cycle is a reflection of your psychology going into pride, going into shame. Pride when you win, shame when you lose. So as a trader, you have to have established a process that allows you to minimize pride and self-exaggeration when you win and minimize self-minimization and shame when you lose. That's the overarching principle that we need to discuss. Okay? So this idea is something we're going to explore in many of the mindset masterclasses because we can hit it from so many different angles. But effectively, now that you have your trading plan, the way you get out of the boom and bust cycle and consistently make profits as a trader is through managing pride and shame and sticking to your trading plan consistently and building momentum that way. It's the pride and shame after you win and lose that need to be managed so that you can stick to your trading plan. Okay? That's part one of this lecture. How do we actually implement that? Part two. So part of managing the pride and shame is already what we've talked about in the previous lectures. If you've gone through and you've watched day 2, day 3, when we talk about the pre-trading process, I mentioned the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool. The Bulletproof Your Mindset tool helps you identify the expectations you have on the outcome. The initial expectation or the initial anchor, it's called the anchoring effect in psychology, will determine typically your emotional reaction after a trade. Let's say, for example, you set a baseline in your mind that you're $1 getting to a certain price over a certain time, and maybe that returns you 3R is your initial expectation or baseline. So if the market exceeds that expectation or baseline, you're extremely elated, you're extremely happy, you're in this state of pride, right? If it meets that or exceeds it, you go into this state of pride. If the market doesn't meet that expectation or baseline that you've established in your mind, you're going to go into this state of shame and self-minimization. Now, you have to understand that your emotional reaction in that state is anchored off the initial expectation. So if you start to implement the principles I've talked about with the Bulletproof Your Mindset tool, and you start to detach from this outcome-based expectation, outcome-based ideas, then in turn, you start to manage your pride and shame after you win and lose. Because if you don't have an expectation on the outcome, truly, then there's nothing to be sad of, or there's nothing to be happy of, because there was no expectation in the first place, in theory, okay? But the more and more you do that, you start to dampen your pride and shame, your reactions after a trade. That's why that principle was so important, okay? The other ideas that are very important is ensuring that you're process-based and have a trading plan that you are adhering to. Okay, because again, all this is doing is it's helping you detach from the outcome and go to process. Being in this state of pride and shame in the boom and bust cycle is a symptom of being caught up in outcome-based thinking. The more you transcend outcome-based thinking, and the more you get away from the addiction of winning and the avoidance of losing, and you go back to your processes, the more and more likely you are to transcend the boom and bust cycle. Now, the other principle that I would love to talk about in today's video is all about redefining winning and losing. Okay? Or redefining really our judgments on anything, good and bad, positive and negative. And we have to recognize that as a trader, and just as a human being throughout our life that comes into trading, we are programmed into certain ideas and certain beliefs about what we think is good and what we think is bad. Okay? And these beliefs may not necessarily be serving us as traders anymore, and it's important to be aware of them, and it's important to address them. We're going to be talking extensively about beliefs and limiting beliefs throughout this masterclass series because it's a crucial part of the human psychology and trading psychology. But throughout our life, typically, we get trained into thinking that winning is good, and we learn to associate dopamine and pleasure and goodness to winning. And we see it as a very positive experience. And that may be for many reasons. You've probably heard me say on this YouTube channel or my YouTube videos before that, it could be an experience earlier in your life where you've had a very successful sporting competition. You did very, very well, and you got a lot of praise and recognition and love from your family and friends and support from your family and friends. And in your mind, you learned to associate that winning equals very good, and very positive and very pleasurable. And I want to seek after that. And we start to seek after it as traders. And so too, we can train ourselves into thinking that losing is bad and it's negative and it's something we have to avoid. And we associate in our mind pain substances towards losing, so that when we have a losing experience, it's very painful and we want to avoid that. And this could be for many reasons. It could be because of a losing experience in a sporting competition. And typically the language when you lose is what? Bad luck, and people look down, and people feel shame, and people feel guilty for you, and people feel sorry for you, and those types of things. You feel guilty. And so very much throughout our life, we are trained into this idea through multiple little experiences throughout our life that winning is good, losing is bad, and that we should seek after winning, and that we should avoid losing because it's bad and painful. Okay? Now, if we're bringing this belief system or this ideology into trading, then we're shooting ourselves in the foot. The reason why is because losing is a necessary part of trading. When we go back to that initial video when we've talked about identifying your edge, if you have a look at your sample space, you will see that consistently profitable results over a larger sample space embody both winning and losing. So by definition, to be a successful trader, you have to both win and lose. You have to experience and take losses in order to let your edge play out to have consistent profitability. Consistent profitability is the embodiment of both winning and losing. So as a trader, we have to learn to redefine what winning and losing mean to us. And when we do, if we learn to manage winning and not necessarily see it as this all positive good thing that we want to seek after, but we learn to see the other side of winning and quiet that down a little bit, and we learn to see the other side of losing, and we realize, it's not all that bad, it's not something I necessarily want to avoid or run away from, then when you win in the market, you're less likely to go into this state of pride, self-exaggeration, and puff yourself up and then talk down in the market. And you're more likely to get out of outcome-based thinking. And so too, when you start to redefine what losing means to you, you don't necessarily start to beat yourself up when you lose all the time, go into the state of shame and fear and self-minimization, and you get out of outcome-based thinking. And when you learn to redefine what winning and losing mean to you, and you transcend the polarities of positive and negative, you go out of outcome-based thinking and you go towards process-based thinking, And guess what? You just start to stick to your trading plan. And irrespective of win or loss, I'm going back to my process and back to my trading plan. So we're going to be talking extensively about this and the psychology and the emotions behind this throughout this series. The actual tool that I teach my six-figure traders, I run them through it in the 12-week program. I run them through it in one-on-one coaching. So if you know this is a major issue for you in your trading, which it is for 95% of traders, you might want to check out the 12-week program, because that's where I teach you the actual process and the tool to be able to go in there and address it. So to give you a better idea of how you can start to redefine winning and losing, it's all about learning to see the other side of an event. Initially, we're trained into thinking that losing is negative, it's bad, it's something we want to avoid. But if you get really honest with yourself and you have a look at some of your losing experiences, I know through my life and through a lot of my clients and students' lives, when we dig deep and we have a look, some of these initially perceived terrible losing events are actually, a lot of the times, the places they learn the most important lessons, and they have the greatest catalysts of growth from these experiences. And sometimes what we initially label as all positive, very good experiences, these so-called successful experiences, are the very experiences that make us complacent, that make us lazy, and make us stop doing the things that got us there in the first place. So when you really look and you're very honest with yourself and you start to look at the benefits of losing, and you start to look at some of the drawbacks of winning, not to make winning bad and not to make losing good, but to see them more from a balanced perspective, you start to realize that, you know what? Winning has some drawbacks, some consequences and risks too. And it's not something that I should necessarily impulsively seek after on this individual trade. And losing, it actually has some benefits, and it holds me accountable, and it reminds me of some of the risks in the market, and therefore the importance of sticking to high quality setups in my trading plan. And whenever I take losses, it gives me this accountability and drive to continue to do the high quality processes to learn and develop as a trader. And it makes me more open and teachable, and it makes me more aware, and it makes me humble myself a little bit. And those really painful losses, I can see that when I experienced those, that's only because I had unrealistic expectations in the market. And therefore, it's holding me accountable to be more open and fluid and to be less imposing of my ideas into the market. And losing makes me go and study and learn new things because I become more open and teachable. So you start to see the benefits of losing. You realize, you know what? It's not all that bad. If I take a loss here and there because it's part of my edge and my sample space, it's fine. I don't really care because I get those experiences and those lessons from it too. And winning, the drawbacks of winning, some of the drawbacks of winning is that it makes you complacent. It makes you think that you know everything. It closes you down from being open and teachable, and you start to minimize the risks in the market. You start to force low quality setups onto the market. So losing has drawbacks too. And as a trader watching this, what I'm encouraging you to do is start to redefine what winning and losing mean to you. Start to recognize that winning has drawbacks and find some of those drawbacks of winning. Not to make it bad, not to make it negative, but to just see it from a more balanced perspective and find the benefits of losing. And recognize that through your profitable sample space, you're going to have both wins and losses. Wins, losses, losses, wins. And experiencing these losses and really embracing them really is important, and recognizing that that's what's necessary for a successful, long-term, being consistently profitable and successful over a long period of time as a trader. You need to experience and embrace losses. Okay? And to get paid as a trader, you need to learn how to embrace losses. And this idea of the best loser wins is true if you're consistently executing on your edge and you're just embracing the losses that are part of your edge. Okay? Now, a little caveat here. This by no means means that you should take losses that aren't part of your plan, and that you should take enormous amounts of risks that aren't part of your plan and aren't part of your processes, and then you should justify those actions by saying, oh, there are benefits here. No. This philosophy, or this idea of transcending the judgment on winning and losing and transcending outcome-based thinking only comes in once you know that you're adhering to your edge, and that the losses you're experiencing are part of your edge and part of your sample space. Okay? And the wins you're experiencing are part of your edge and part of your sample space. You don't want to then just become a cowboy risking money and gambling and then using these principles to justify the losses you take. It's important to embody process-based thinking and stick to your trading plan at all times and adhere to your trading edge at all times. Okay? And your trading plan. That's what's most important. And then in order to keep yourself balanced and keep yourself sticking to your trading plan, you utilize these principles of transcending the judgment and redefining what winning and losing mean to you so that you can stick to your edge. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. And you can recognize that if you do this over and over and you get out this state of pride, self-exaggeration, shame, you're going to be able to easily take on the information the market's communicating to you without bias. We're going to start talking more about the biases that kick in when you're in pride and shame, and then you can stick to your trading plan and execute when the market presents opportunity. You can get consistently paid as a trader, and you can start to transcend the boom and bust cycle. Okay? If you found this useful, please share it with your trading communities. Let's get these videos out there so more traders can focus on trading psychology and get paid from the markets. And if you haven't already, make sure you take the trading psychology archetype quiz. That quiz is a mind blower. You'll learn which trading psychology you have and what exactly you can do to get from where you are to consistently profitable as a trader. Okay? I look forward to seeing all of you in tomorrow's video.